Okay, it's 7:01. I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Bill Brown,
Here.
Annie Adams,
Here.
Leonardo Kovis, Kara Dudek,
Here.
Cynthia Hoyle,
Present.
Audrey Ishii,
Here.
Susan Jones, Jeff Marino,
Here.
Shannon Baranek,
Here.
Nancy Westcott,
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, moved by Cynthia to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Morgan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, that carries. The agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes from last month. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at those? Are there any corrections? Okay. Is there a motion then to approve the minutes? Okay, Nancy, is there a second?
I'll second that too.
Morgan? Moved by Nancy and seconded by Morgan to approve the minutes. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The minutes are approved. Okay, next is public input. Is there anyone in the public that's not making a presentation later wants to go ahead and offer any public input? This is the time to do it. Anybody want to say anything? Okay. We have a class of, for people that might be watching sometime at home, probably not live. I don't know if we're live tonight or not. Oh, we're bumped by the school board. There is a class here, a finance class that is also in engineering. So, so yeah. And we do have one public input from Audrey. Do you want to go up there? Okay.
Yeah, no, I talk from here.
Talk
I've
from there?
passed
Okay.
out this to a few people. I have one spare if someone needs it. We're going to be hearing a presentation from an engineer from Public Works on University Avenue lately, and I just wanted to give a little bit of history and a little bit of perspective for people to help us in thinking through what she shows us and what kind of questions we want to ask. One thing is that several years ago, RPC did a really nice University Avenue corridor study, and that's up on the RPC site. It's very interesting, lots of visioning and so on. That was not from the viewpoint of IDOT, which IDOT is strictly about safety. The particular grant we have for and I'm sure Shannon will address this, the particular grant we have is not about improving University Avenue from the viewpoint of economics or access or anything. It's about safety. And she'll be talking about that. A couple years ago, then our acting assistant engineer for traffic sent a preliminary plans from IDOT, and I can make sure anyone who wants this has this. He passed out the link to everybody. So it's detailed plans, and Shannon may be addressing that somewhat too, or able to update us with some newer plans. Now, the last time we discussed this here, several individuals from BPAC and others sent really great research letters to IDOT and to the City Council about their issues with the plan as it stands, particularly removing all the trees in view of the idea that we're trying to be a carbon zero city in a definable time span. Safety issues with the plans, also speed, which apparently they did hear the message on speed to some degree and agreed to lower it in the future. But my point here is that writing letters makes a difference. The City Council heard from the traffic engineer who's left now at that time about the plans. They were addressing a particular variance for a business on University Avenue. And I think independently, the council became concerned about the removal of trees from the parkway and all the things that trees can do, possibly even shading from glare, calming traffic, addressing pollution, and so on. The engineer at that time did say, I think, reluctantly, that he would check with IDOT if they could possibly reconsider their plans for the trees in the parkway. He seemed a little concerned whether IDOT could withdraw the grant, become offended. I don't think so. This grant is about safety, and I hope that we see some follow-up on that in the near future. Finally, I've been doing a course with a webinar on complete streets, and I wanted to hold up this example. This course was taught by a consultant from Nashville, Tennessee. He did not name the street, Jones Avenue Corridor existing conditions. If you'll look at it, you can see some similarities with University Avenue. It's a town that has hospitals and universities off that Midtown State Thruway. It's a state highway again. It has an ADT of 22,000 to 38,000. It's used as a pass-through on the way to somewhere else. Ring any bells with University Avenue? This town took charge and decided they wanted to see it become an urban multimodal corridor providing safe and attractive transportation for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and cars, while creating a unique urban district with a variety of opportunities for people to stay and discover a great place. They did have some difference from University Avenue as it has existed. They had a lot of businesses, it looks like, and they had a lot of pedestrians at night. However, University Avenue, since the IDOT study and since the corridor study, has developed a ton of pedestrians from all the apartment houses on the north side of University Avenue, so that this is becoming more and more applicable. If you'll turn it over, you'll see what the key issues and challenges were that he described. And I'm sorry, I don't know where this is. I was hoping Cynthia might have a clue.
It looks to me like Charlotte Avenue in Nashville, which makes University look somewhat more functional, and yeah, they have a very big problem with traffic congestion in Nashville, essentially because their transit, they have repeatedly attempted to improve their transit system, but outside forces have lobbied to defeat some of their efforts.
Yeah,
We have
specifically the
enviable-
Koch brothers came in
Yeah,
on
we
the
have
scene.
enviable transit. However, the bus stops and other facilities along there only recently were upgraded. But the city has taken a very active role. They have a pedestrian and bike plan, so the city's been lobbying heavily to improve, and they have a very high rate of pedestrian fatalities in Nashville as well.
And that was a strange thing that it wasn't mentioned in these slides, what the pedestrian fatality rate was. I don't know why. It sounded, you know, he didn't want to give the name, and he was sounding fairly cheerful. But then the final design choices are interesting, and he did not put a picture up of this, whether this happened. He gave the impression that it did, but I'm not sure. And I tried to find his email, and I couldn't find it, so.
Some improvements have definitely been made, and they have improved some of the intersections, but it's still, last time I drove on it, it was still pretty auto-oriented. But given they've got to improve their
T-dot oriented.
Well, I think that the DOT is that opposed to some of these. I mean, they have a pretty robust program in some ways, but I think that they really have to have beefed up transit because there's not as good of options for switching modes as are needed to reduce vehicle miles traveled there.
Okay, well, I just wanted people to be aware that there are alternatives, amazing alternatives to what we see on University Avenue. There are resources for research, and there is the possibility to make a difference, too, as we've seen from past experience. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I especially like on safety where it says pedestrians interfere with traffic at peaks. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting words, yeah.
Those interfering pedestrians, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Put each one of them in a car, and we'll see how well they interfere.
Okay, thanks, Audrey. Okay, next we have unfinished business update on the bike share program. Ben Thomas is here from ViaRide. He's got a couple people asked for an update on you know what's new with ViaRide and where the I guess we also kind of wondered where the potential expansion of number of bikes is. I know that was discussed at council, and then nothing ever
didn't
seemed to
approve
happen
it.
with it. So
Mhm.
if you can just bring us up to date with where you are. And so how long has it been now that you've been on campus?
Yes, we've been here since September 1st. Just a little
Need a
selection.
microphone.
Oh, yeah, pull up one of those mics.
Make sure, yeah.
Is that good? Is that better? Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. Cool. I put a little PowerPoint together, and I can make. Everything goes through Lily, Ben from Champaign, and then Morgan from the university, so they get all this information. But the PowerPoint just shows briefly kind of an introduction of just kind of where we're at as a company, where we're going to. This is about 90% updated. We're actually we're in about 30 plus markets across the United States currently. This is kind of our current bike fleet and our scooter fleet as well. This is kind of what we're offering as a company. Our e-bike, we have our new pedal bike that we just introduced in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We have our hand trike, our fat tire bike, and then our scooters, obviously. And so this is just a little bit about the review. So we launched September 1st, 2018. First year of operation, so from September 1st all the way through to this past September, completing a 1 year, we hit over 300,000 rides. To date, so as of yesterday, we've done over 385,000 rides total. Pedal bikes, April 1st is the date that we introduced e-bikes to the market, so that's why that date's important, or the separation. So pedal bikes, we've done over 85,000. E-bikes, we've done over 125,000 rides since April 1st of this year. And our total user base in this specific market is over 20,000 people. And this is just kind of it's a brief kind of comparisons from last year to this year, just September to September. So 45,000 rides, that's just pedal bikes. And then this year, in September, we did over 36,000, and then there's a breakdown there, over 31,000 e-bike rides and about 4,500 pedal bike rides. And then October breakdown, last year we did 60,000, over 60,000 rides, and this year we've done over 37,000 rides with pedal bikes at 3,600 and e-bikes at 33,000. Future VO Ride. So at this point, here at UIUC, we're committed to continuing our pilot. The pilot goes through June of next year. That's what we have agreed with the city and as well as the university in our three-party agreement. Our goals in the future of this market is that we're hoping for a single vendor. This is the second pilot year. We were hoping to get it last year. That didn't work out. So we are, as a company and myself living here, are really pushing hard to make sure that we lock out any potential vendors who would want to come here in the future. This year, Gotcha, which is one of our competitors, was one of our competitors. They launched e-bikes in Springfield last May. Since then, they have been absorbed by another company. They applied to come here and they failed to do so. And so we, at this point, are pushing for a single vendor and a multi-year contract. And with that, we'd also like to bring scooters. Currently, the university has issued a no scooter policy on campus. The cities have followed with, because this campus has made that clear, that they don't want to move forward with that. And so we're at a point where we want to continue conversations on what that would look like, because that will be a vital part in us staying for another year or in the future, is bringing scooters to the market. Nationally, just a couple updates. We're rebranding, so we'll be VO. There's a new cooler logo than just VO, but that's how it's going to be. We're rebranding as a company. We're still dedicated to providing safe and affordable dockless mobility options to our existing and future markets. One of the big focuses we have is maintaining what we built here. This is our second best, which hurts me to say. It used to be our first best in ridership in the company, but Texas A&M, they've done over 640,000 rides total as a market, but that's with 2,500 bikes, and 70,000 students. So it was bound to happen, but with the size of the campus, the amount of bikes that we're allowed to have here, this market has been very successful. Up until 3 weeks ago, we were still beating out every scooter market and bike market. Since last April, we were consistently #1 when it came to overall revenue produced. which is a great thing for me, and for the viability and sustainability of the market. As we move forward as a company, any new market, I was mentioning this to Lily, any new markets we move forward will have scooters in them. When we look at our company as a whole, when we're looking at where we're moving and where we can succeed and be sustainable as a business, we're looking into providing scooters and bikes, or just scooters in those markets. An example is we just confirmed a contract with South Bend, Indiana. We're still working on the Notre Dame side, but the South Bend has been confirmed, and we'll be supplying scooters and e-bikes to the city of South Bend in hopes that Notre Dame will also come along in that contract. Our goal is to continue to maintain a 50-50 ratio when it comes to campus and cities focus. We're growing into a really, we want to solidify ourselves as a nationally, based company. Like we want to compete with the Limes and the Birds in the world. And so we've participated in Chicago pilot this past summer, which had 10 vendors. Everyone had 250 scooters on the west side of Chicago, which we did really well in. We're now in Cleveland, as well in Austin, Texas, and we have a couple other contracts that we're waiting on. We're still dedicated to vehicle innovation, so we're working on a 3-wheeled scooter and also a sit-down scooter that we have in the works to deploy next spring. Not here, but as a company. Those two will be done by next spring with launch dates and test markets that we have planned out. And then some tech innovation that we have coming, facial recognition. So that's already being developed and should be finished by the end of Q4 of this year, with the ability to detect if someone's wearing a helmet, then they'll get a discount. So whatever that discount will be based on the market, but that would be up to 10%, up to 50% off their ride if they wear a helmet, and the facial recognition will do that. We're also initiating an alcohol kind of recognition puzzle. So for all of our markets that don't have any curfews on them, we'll, after, let's say, midnight, any user will be forced to engage into some type of puzzle they'll have to put together in the app to show that they're not drunk. So that's something that will be done by probably March next year. And then our continue just overall in the back end, better tracking when our overall swapping batteries with our, obviously with our swappable e-bikes here in this market, being able to improve efficiency and make sure that there's more bikes available to users more frequently. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks. Are the in the markets where you have scooters, are the prices, how the prices compare to rent a scooter versus a bike?
Yeah, so it depends on the city. So Cleveland. So most markets that we have, it's still the same as the e-bike. It's $1 to unlock and 15 cents a minute, depending on the city and pricing. Like Cleveland, it's a little bit more expensive per minute to ride. In Chicago, I think we maybe charge 20 cents per minute. So it really just depends. If they were able to come here, it most likely would be 15 cents, but that's kind of where they're at. From two markets, it's really interesting that two markets that we have introduced multimodal, and when I say that, I mean introducing scooters into an already existing bike market. Nashua and also Arkansas State, who were operational for a full year before we dropped scooters this fall, they saw bike ridership expand or grow 30% once scooters hit the ground. And so we're seeing that trend as we continue to grow, and we hope that that will be a continued trend into existing markets that have bikes as we introduce more modes. People just kind of gravitate towards there's a mode of transportation. I don't care if it's a scooter or a bike. I'm going to get on it. So that's what we think is happening.
And for the scooter rides, do they tend to be shorter or about the same as bikes?
It depends on the market. Tend to be longer. They tend to be, depending on the city and depending on the market and how the city is set up. In Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is one of my markets, we've seen as the market we launched in early September. In the initial stage, it was more recreational based riding, so it was a lot of hour and a half, 2 hour rides that people were riding. It's very flat, very like this city, like very flat. Infrastructure is very good. A lot of bike lanes. As it's gone along, the recreational, obviously it's getting colder, but there's more commuting that's happening now than the initial stage. It was more the excitement of phase of something new, and now it's transitioning to more of the actual, how do I use this to get to work? How do I use this to go meet my friends for coffee or go study for class, things like that.
For a pedestrian, could you describe a scooter? Is it something you stand up on, and is it electronic?
Yeah. I have a picture on the PowerPoint. It's the middle one. That's so it's a standing electric scooter. It has a swappable battery just like the e-bike. So the center, the chamber that you stand on, we pop that open, put a new battery in. That's different than all of our competitors have to bring their scooters into their house, and they have either they pay people to charge them, citizens to charge them inside their dorms or houses. We have techs that same thing how we operate here. We bring good batteries, swap them out, and take the bad ones to charge up. And we're developing like I said, a 3-wheeled version. So for people who may not have a good sense of gravity, they're able just to stand. And when it comes to stop signs and red lights, that they don't have to get off the scooter physically. They can stay on it, and also the sit-down scooter as well.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, why do the scooters make, I have three, so basically I have a 3-part question. Why do the scooters make money? And then you just answered my other question. What I've been reading a lot about scooters is people think they're safer than they are, and so now companies are making a lot safer scooters, like you're suggesting a 3-wheeled scooter, fatter wheels, things to just increase the stability of the scooters, because people are hurting themselves, essentially. They're like falling off. And then my third question would be, to complete the entire system, I was in Syracuse, and there's a company there that also has like these tiny cars, like these small cars that you can rent. So I don't know if you're ever, if that's on the horizon at any point.
Sure.
Those are my 3 questions.
Sure. To address the financial aspect, I think that scooters, I think there's more of a recreational view to them when people get on them. I think the bikes, when you see a bike, it's more of a commuter base, or you go to a city that has a docking system, like you go to downtown Chicago and you see Divvy, you're seeing a lot of commuters anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 a.m. because that's just what they're going to do. You're not going to see many people going down Lakeshore on a Divvy bike. You're going to see people going on Lakeshore Drive with their own personal bike. They're going to go for the 20-mile ride on that because those bikes aren't built for recreational use to go 20, our bikes aren't built for recreational use. We would never tell anybody to go on a 60-mile ride on one of our bikes because they're not built to do that. They're built for the sharing in small commutes to and fro. Obviously, the e-bikes can get you further in a quicker time. The scooters provide that recreational piece of going out and having a good time with your friends and something to do, to go out and see and explore the cities that you live in. So that's why we see the scooters making a lot more money than the bikes do. And the overall operational costs, like the overhead, scooters are a lot more efficient and easier to work on and easier to sustain and maintain over a long period of time than the bikes are, just because they just are. They're smaller parts. There's just less things to go through than it is an electric bike. Did I miss anything? Small cars. That's something that may be in the future. I think that's where we're kind of addressing it with the smaller or the sit-down scooter in a sense. But I know that one of our competitors has like a 4-wheeled, version of an electric, kind of almost an ATV, but it's not classified as an ATV. It would be considered, I'm assuming they probably consider it as a scooter-ish, but.
Yeah, because one thing I think about bikes that people don't like as much as cars is that you can have a conversation with somebody, like the two of you can sit and talk while you're in the car. So yeah, if there is some sort of forward movement towards maybe a bike that 2 people can be in together, or a scooter that 2 people can be on together. And I know I once owned a small Honda Spree, and that was the big problem with the Honda Spree, was I couldn't put another person on, and the 2 of us couldn't go places.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
So I think I have some comments more than questions. So I think a lot of people won't know what we're talking about with the pedal bike, the hand pedal bike, and that is for people who don't have use of their legs. They can pedal with their hands.
Oh, the trike, you mean?
The trike,
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it has some electric assist.
That one does not.
It does not.
Yeah, we currently don't make an electric version of the hand trike. So
interesting.
currently that version is only at Kent State University.
Okay.
That's the only place that we have ever taken it anywhere. They have the fat tire bikes, the pedal bikes, the e-bikes, and they have 2 trikes
Interesting.
that we rent out to the rec department for them
Okay.
to rent out to the
People.
community if they want to use
Interesting.
them, because
Okay.
we don't have a lock physically on
Okay.
that.
Well, I wanted to say that I've been disappointed and frustrated that they didn't raise the number of bikes in your fleet. There's clearly a demand for it. You're the only vendor here, so I was really frustrated about that. I'm also concerned about the restrictions we're imposing on the only vendor that we have, and we talked about bike share here for 10 years, and we could not get it to come here, and now a private vendor has come in. They've done all the heavy lifting. You've done a fabulously successful program. So I would certainly hope that we will work with you and allow scooters. I think there have been a number of other communities that have dealt with the initial issues. One of the advantages we have here is that we like with our bikes, a lot of the issues had gotten worked out in other communities, so we could kind of pull from that to identify how to manage some of the issues in our contract before we came here. And I think the primary problem with the scooters has been their parking, and so I think that's something we want to take a look at and make sure that we can handle that problem. I know the bikes, it has gotten better with the bike parking. There's still occasional issues. The weather also plays a role in that. It blows them over onto sidewalks, even though they might have been parked off the sidewalk initially. So there are those kinds of issues that we still have. Also, I think it's interesting because I heard the opinion expressed on campus that the students wouldn't be happy with the e-bikes. I think quite to the opposite. They love the e-bikes. I just bought an electric assist cargo bike myself, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I think the students probably really appreciate that because it reduces the time it takes them to get somewhere, and they can go further faster. So I think as a transportation mode, it provides an excellent choice for mobility that gives people another option that is helpful. But what I would like to see in the future, if we can make recommendations to the city with their contract negotiations, is to expand the fleet, set a ratio for how many of the bikes should be pedal and how many should be electric, although I think given the usage rates, the electric are clearly are becoming more popular, and also the ratio of scooters and bikes. I think that we have the ability to manage scooters here. We do need to do that, but I think that they provide a mobility option that people ought to have a choice to use if they so choose.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else have questions or comments? Yeah, Jeff.
Hey, Ben, so it looked like I may have misread the numbers from year to year. It looked like they went down, total rides?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a handle on what may have caused that?
Well, I think for overall, I think to your point as well, like with the ratio difference, one of those is because there's not as many pedal bikes. We probably only have 80-ish pedal bikes, 100 pedal bikes out compared to the 400 e-bikes out. So there's that big difference when that. I think that there is I think though the rides have gone down, I think from a business perspective, like it's been really good for us. Like we see this, we're still providing a service to the students. I think that, yeah, I'm sure that the pricing has affected some ridership overall, going from 50 cents for 30 minutes to $1.15, and starting price, to unlock it and go. So we know that's going to affect some to an aspect of the total ridership, but we also know that overall the program's still being successful. We're still running. We're still seeing our numbers hit the marks that we thought we were going to do with our e-bikes.
And do you guys do marketing? Or is the same amount of marketing or less marketing or more marketing since your initial launch?
We have done, so in September I ran an ad through Smile Politely. I partnered with them. I did a month-long ad with them. And then we have messaging that we can send through our app to our users and things like that. We did 250 coupons for $2 ride credits. We sent to the Aruna 5K that happened maybe 2 weeks ago. We gave them, that was all from us. Like we didn't charge them. It was just more of a donation. That gave $2 for anybody who was participating in that. They could use to upload to their account and go. So we've tried to initiate as much as possible this year. We've participated in our requirements with the University of Illinois, and we've done the events that we told them we would be at, as we continue to do. We want to be a partner with the university as well as the cities. Yeah.
One last question. I saw you have the average ride time has gone up even though the numbers have gone down. Mm-hmm. Do you also have the distance? I would assume that's gone up if the average ride time has gone up per ride.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have the exact distance on my end. So we transitioned in February to our new back end. So our lock provider, we transitioned away from them. They were the one who was storing all of our data when it came to our heat mapping and our distance and stuff like that. So we're still building that out from our back end to create it more accessible for us as GMs to pull that data and be able to provide it. So all of our cities, the city campus and the cities here, both have access to a real-time data that gets updated each week, and to total rides, total users, things like that. But when it comes to distance, that's something that our devs have to dig in a little bit deeper to actually pull that. It's not as accessible as it was a year ago when we were using a different provider. So now we're building it out. Hopefully by the end of this year, I'll have more data to provide for the university and the cities as we do our semester review in December. So hopefully I'll have that, and they can hopefully pass that along to you
Great,
guys.
thanks.
I know whenever something's new, whether it's bikes or restaurants, there's always a lot of interest the first time it opens, and everybody kind of tries it out. So is that typical in your other markets to see a year-to-year drop for the first month like that, first month or two?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's always a spike when we start off in a new market because it's something new. I think these numbers are more consistent with just the sustainability of how the market's going to run from here on out. I think that we're still going to. I mean, we should hit 400,000 total rides by the end of this year. Before we completely shut down for the winter time. So I think that we're still doing pretty large numbers compared to most of our markets, which is, I think, I think this is what we kind of planned for with the e-bike implementation and the pedal bikes kind of moving away. And I've mentioned this to Morgan and also our city reps. Like we're totally on board with regulating in a contract different modes of transportation. We just know that scooters have to be a part of that. That's just, if we're going to bring fat tire bikes and ADA assist bikes, which we're all for, scooters just have to be part of that conversation in order for us to make sense for us as a business to do that here, which we want to, and I want to. I live in Champaign, so I love being here, and but as a business, we want to make sure that we're making the right decision for us as well.
I have seen a number of charity bike rides and runs and stuff, and the community really appreciates your presence there and being able to help out on those things.
I have one question. The way that the university benefits from the CUMTD and students have the ability to ride that, quote unquote, for free. I know they're paying for it. Is there any kind of discussion on that level with VO? And that being part of the contract, that the students would somehow get access to these bikes?
So I think you can correct me more but so I think there's one thing that we're working on, I think which would come with it. I think two things. One, which would come with, first thing being, if we were able to get a single vendor, I think be able to work with the university and provide a membership option in the beginning of the semester when kids are paying their fees, working that into, there's a drop-down box that they just click and it's admission, and then they get unlimited rides. That could be something that we work into. Second part of having a single vendor is you then open the door to an equity piece and saying, if bikes and scooters are here, that this is not 5 cents per scooter ride, goes back to whatever city entity, like that. That's where we get into an actual partnership of saying VO Rides partner here. We signed a 3-year agreement, and we have these modes of transportation. Now each city and the campus is getting a share of per ride that we've agreed upon, and that's going back to you guys in the city to then go to BPAC or however you guys want to use the money for. But we do that already with some of our cities. Some of it's required, some of we've worked into that, but it's something that we would love to do here. That's definitely on the table to have a discussion with the cities and the campus.
Because I just look at the cost of how much money has been saved by those 400,000 rides on the wear and tear on our streets, and it's a lot of money. So it's just one thing I keep in mind when I see those numbers.
So what's the process like? Are you, do you have a meeting scheduled with a group that's working on the next IGA, intergovernmental agreement, or do you, what's the next step if you want to get your fleet expanded?
Maybe just to jump in,
Yeah.
he's not part of the intergovernmental agreement.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be included in those conversations. The intergovernmental agreement is between the city of Urbana, the city of Champaign, and the University of Illinois.
But doesn't it say how many bikes they can have?
The bikes, yes, but the intergovernmental agreement is not, we're not including the business in the negotiations about how the licensing program works. I'm just trying to clarify for anyone out there in the world.
Right.
He's not at the table with us, right, in the agreement that we have.
You'd
Yeah,
think
so
he
I
might
have-
some input, though, since it affects his business.
I think that input about, suggestions from the companies, one alone, or any others, and from all of the community members and stakeholders are all welcome, but in the negotiations of the agreement, it's only the active parties. That's what I'm trying to say. It's
Okay.
maybe what I'm just trying to say he's not in the room while we're negotiating the agreement about what we would have let him do.
Well, the agreement
that's not-
itself
that's
is
not
really not that
acceptable
much to
behavior.
negotiate between the intergovernmental agencies. Most of it is how it's regulating the business. So I'm familiar with the agreement, and there's not much.
But the
I mean,
conversations we
there's a little
have
bit,
with
you know,
him-
Champaign gets a little bit of money for managing the program, and Urbana's agreed to that, but everything else is about regulating the business, so it would make sense to make sure the business is involved. And
Yeah, we meet with him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're supposed to meet monthly, at least exchange contact emails.
Yeah, I provide,
Okay.
monthly I provide all numbers every month of
Yeah.
ride totals, average ride time, all that stuff gets sent to email, and then we can schedule a time to meet, but we'll be meeting in December to discuss overall how the fall went. And then from there, but we've been having meetings since last September, and every meeting we have discussions about fleet size, about scooters, about, overall pricing, about things like that. So those are always having conversations between us, the city, and also in Morgan and the campus, and we're dialing back and forth. We're talking about single vendor, how that would work, how long the process is. So all those conversations have been going on for a year and a half now.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think
just-
we very well know. He would like to increase the number at least to 750, maybe more, certainly more if we would. He would like to include scooters, and he would most like, I should say, they would most like to be a single vendor. I wanted to ask a question
Okay.
about the membership. Did you get a change in your membership program so that e-bikes are included in memberships at this point? Or is a membership only going towards the 80 to 100 pedal non-e-bikes?
Yeah, the membership currently is still only for the pedal bikes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. Sure, why not?
But you need to come to the microphone.
Yeah, come on up to the mic.
And say your name? Or something.
This microphone
Oh,
over here.
there's another mic up there at
Over
the.
here, this mic over here.
You can come to this one.
Thanks, Audrey. I'm Deborah. I'm a resident of Urbana. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Illinois. You mentioned heat map data. You guys presumably track a ride from beginning to end, right? So you
Yeah.
have the full geographic information of the ride. Is that data in a position to be provided to anybody?
Yeah, so that data that goes into our previous provider. So I'll be providing all the information as a fall review to when we finish the semester up to both the cities and Morgan, because we have to pull it all from our new backend that we've created. It has to be manually done from our devs instead of previously, which we have screenshots from September 1st through February or whenever I stopped sending them through May, that the city has access to, which they show priority starting time, priority end routes, or when people ended their ride and locked the bike, and also popular bike path routes. So the city has about 8 to 9 months of data already collected on that, and then all this new data will be forced to them in December, January when I get that to them.
Is it quantitative, or is it just like brighter paths are more used?
Yeah, it's brighter paths, so it goes from green to red, and so the red shows the high ridership paths. Obviously, so like you'll see, campus will just be like a waffle. Every street will just be intercoursing of red. But then the more for the city use in Champaign, you'll see the trails going up to the marketplace, or going down to over here in Carl and
North
going.
Lincoln or something.
Yeah.
So the situation that I'm interested in, right, is like hypothetically, there were a certain number of rides going down the street beforehand, and then we added a new bike facility, and then we could say, oh, quantitatively, bike rides increased by 50% down this route. Is that presumably that's possible.
Presumably, yeah. I have
Yeah.
to. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, So my question was just, when you do you ever do surveys? Like, how do people, do you get feedback? What do people want? Or, I don't know. Does that question make sense?
We did surveys last spring, and that was more so with e-bike focus. I have been hesitant, and I have, for respect of the university and my relationship with Morgan and Stacy, I have not done any surveys regarding scooters because of their stance, and I don't want to. I'm not pushing that with them because I know their stance, and we constantly, so there's a respect level of, though we are a business, she already knows where we're at, and I don't have to keep pitching to her, and so I don't, but there's also respect level. So I don't go on campus and say, do you want scooters, or post on Reddit or something like that, because I think that's not how we do business, and so that's not how I want to operate. I think most people probably do want them, so I don't think I have to. Obviously, it'd be nice to have the data, but I think that I don't want to hurt a relationship that we have, which is so good between all three entities right now. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I may have some other things I'll email you.
Sure.
I think that's enough for tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and then we have a subcommittee that did some introductory or some beginning work on revamping our webpage. Who's going to report for that? Annie? All right, thanks. Yeah, Annie, Nancy, and Sue were on the subcommittee.
All right, so Nancy, Annie, and Sue got together, and Nancy very wisely said, hey, why don't we talk to Sam? And so we met Sam, who is helping the city of Urbana about 12 hours a week, and we met with Sam, and Lily arranged a meeting, and all of us came to the city, and we had a really nice meeting about what is possible, what is not possible. So what I'm going to show you is, the website is a Drupal website, and we're just going to talk about like what we can do without ripping the entire thing apart and rebuilding it. So that is, we kind of just want to start with what is possible. So in a fast manner, like what can he do quickly? And I'll just get into just sort of the levels of what can happen next. So this is the current, so I'm just going to first go through existing conditions, and then we'll go through some proposed ideas. So this is the current homepage. When you get to the drop-down menu, who can tell me where the, who can tell me where bike?
I always just type bike Urbana in the search thing because I can never find it in the.
Come on, anybody? Yeah, okay.
Under government, and then, well, one way to get to it is under government commissions.
Yep, you can do government commissions. Now let's just say that you're trying to figure out, does the city have buses? Can I ride a bike in this city? Can I walk? Where would I go?
Google.
You choose parking and transportation.
And the winner is Morgan. Parking and transportation is your answer. So
But
if
I'm afraid it doesn't say anything at all about bikes or transit.
it will, we're going to get there. So existing conditions are right now. If you're just kind of like, I'm moving to this city. I wonder if I can take a bus. I wonder if I can ride a bike. So you would roll down to parking and transportation, and then you. And then you get here to parking. Hopefully it makes us money. That's all I can think. You get to parking, this website called Parking Regulations. And then on the left-hand side, you see under Parking and Transportation, the second one down is Bike Urbana. You can also see pedestrians, and then way at the bottom, you can see Zipcar Program. So this is, again, existing conditions. And then, something happened to this page here. So hold on a second. Escape. This is why you always make a PDF. So let's open the PDF. Can we fill the window with the P? Thank you. View. Can you all see it? All right, full screen mode. All right, let's see if it made a better PDF then. Okay, so now we're on the Bike Urbana website. We've made it here. This is what happens. You get to this website, a lot of text, a lot of information. The hierarchy of information is a little confusing. So we're just going to keep going forward at this point. So this is sort of our suggested changes. One thing that we don't want on the bike website is report a problem. So we would like if report a problem was just right at the top for anyone who had a problem, like there's a turkey in my front yard, report a problem. We would like the transportation options to be changed to getting around. I did realize that the visitor section has a getting around section as well. I just want to put that out there, but Yes, yeah. A lot of the pages are, I almost screenshot it, but it's really not worth our energies to even look at. It's really not. So getting around and then just make parking.
I would just conceptually, I'd rather have report a problem at the end, because it's not like every time someone comes to the city website, it's in order to tell us a problem because we have so many problems. That's not really the message we want to send everyone, right?
Okay, I agree. Right now, though, so in the past, when I have said I have issues with, like, I don't feel like they're cleaning bike lanes, and I don't know what's going on, and everyone's like, it's really simple, it's on the homepage, and I've never been able to find it. So contact us doesn't really. I can contact you. That doesn't like make me. So I'm absolutely open. So. Basically, that was sort of just a solution I had instead of contact us, which is what the current thing is. And that's literally all I'm doing here is changing words around.
Yeah, and
So-
I like the report a problem more than contact us. Because people know, I just don't think it should be our primary expectation of users.
I see a lot of these changes are non-bike related, and that's great that you're making those suggestions. I think some of them are really good, but maybe for tonight's meeting, if you could just go through the bike part.
That's exactly right. So the
Okay.
question is are we going to create on the Bike Urbana website something
And
that says
pedestrian.
report a problem? And so that's what we need an answer on. And we need to know if report a problem is going to be on the Bike Urbana website or if we're going to just keep contact us. So that's what these are. So we would just like the parking and transportation, as you can see, to change it just to parking. And we would like living in Urbana to be taken down, and then add a drop down that's called getting around. And then this is the current situation here is on your left. And then this is what the suggested websites would be. Walk and roll. So what we would do is we would create 10 pages. We would look at existing content, rewrite existing content, and we would create 10 pages. Those 10 pages would be, and this is what we really need a lot of feedback on, is if we have the right 10 pages, is walk and roll, mass transit, ride with us, plan your trip, how we're bike friendly, bike parking, bike and car share, planning projects and policies, outreach and education, bicycle and pedestrian advisory commission. I'm just going to go through the whole thing and then we can come back and talk about. So again, it's 10 unique pages, and I'll explain further kind of how we see those pages looking. So like how we're bike friendly would have the bike master plan, complete streets, gold level application, culture and history. Ride with us would have bike to work and school, bike project, Prairie Cycle, Champaign County Bikes, Bike at Illinois, Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, League of American Bicyclists. And in the parking thing, if none of these changes are made, that's fine by me. There is no parking commission, so I have no idea. But if the one thing that I could see being added to parking would be something about bike lanes. How I don't want to add in parking in bike lanes, but parking by bike lanes, somehow, some way that we could show people where and how they could bike regarding bike lanes. So there's that. Nancy is very concerned, sure we all are, but we can't find where the BPAC meeting videos are. And we would get into that when we began to move around the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Commission website, look at the information there and move around how the information is displayed. And then just one thing real fast we wanted to share with you is a Drupal website that I just created for the Graduate College. So this is sort of one way of looking at information. And I also wanted to share with you that since I was the one that wrote it, you're going to see some stuff about bikes in there. So living in CU, I think some of us might know that that's Jan's bike. That was taken by Fred, the University of Illinois photographer. So the text is just very poppy. It's CU. We're not like any other cities. We say that's our best feature. With a small town feel and urban perks, you will find a place with a vibrant community, relaxed lifestyle, and 6,370-acre campus nestled between the twin cities of Champaign and Urbana. So sort of more, using sort of a more approachable tone for the language. We would go, so the three things on this page that might be of interest is go where you want and activities for everyone. So go where you want, sort of explaining students have access to unlimited public transportation, discover local shops and walkable historic downtowns, use bike share on tree-lined streets, tree-lined cycle-friendly streets, and get a lift using rideshare or car share. And then you could just have URLs to these variety of things. Activities for everyone, hike amid soaring prairie plants, train with a group to run a marathon, pedal for pleasure on a rail bed converted into a recreational prairie trail. So it's sort of like, it's sort of almost like a tourist website in some ways, like that sort of language of like, here are some activities and things you can do, and then hot links. So that is sort of where we're at. So there's not much we can do until we know if the getting around would be a possibility. And if getting around is a possibility, are these the buckets of information we want, or do we want different buckets of information? There.
So explain to us what the difference between mass transit and Ride With Us is.
Ride With Us, I think we saw more as cycling.
Oh, cycling groups. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I got it. Because Ride With Us sounds like transit to me, so
Mhm.
that's why.
Fair. Yeah.
That's exactly what I had written down.
Mm-hmm.
Is your speaker on?
When I push the button.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's,
One thing that stood out to me is we talk a lot about like yielding to, you know, bikes yielding to pedestrians or cars yielding to bikes and pedestrians, and like if there was just something that was like initially sort of the rules of the road in like 2 paragraphs that basically just say we're proud of who we are as a gold bicycle friendly community, and maybe this is, you know, the 3 feet passing rule, and like really quick blurbs for people who are unfamiliar with riding in areas that have a lot of bikes and peds.
yeah, I think for the Urbana website, I think the reason I see people going to it really are to see what the local rules are. A lot of people are here from out of state or even out of the country. So, you know, riding regulations, some maps, and then maybe some like, and the Ride With Us, I guess, connecting to the other groups is important, but I would rename it, I think, to make it more obvious what it is. But I do think something about the regulations and just kind of the mechanics of bike riding in town would be important to kind of emphasize. And then even like, I think on the police, if you go to the Urbana website, the police site has links to the bike safety quiz, and those are great for people that haven't commuted by bike before or aren't familiar with local regulations and how to ride and how to use the bike paths and everything.
I would
So
put that
I think
under
we-
walk and roll. I
Oh.
think you could put all of that information by walking and rolling, because I think pedestrians need the same information.
Yeah, I think we were thinking of putting it under outreach and education. Was where we were going to put the bike quiz. Yeah, I thought we were thinking of putting the bike quiz and rules of the road and other
But
information
maybe you
like
could put
that.
a link to it under walk and roll, because that's the first place people will go. And so you could say, oh, if you want to see the rules of the road, click on this. It could take you to outreach and education.
Yeah, and there's also the Traffic Commission webpage has a few rules on its page. So you might want to just take a quick, it's not a lot, it's not several pages links deep like this. It's right up there in front on the front page. So I think making sure that we're consistent with them, or they're consistent with us, as the case may be, could be a good double check, because they are referencing pedestrian behavior on that page. And Yeah, I think it's so important that we emphasize the walking, because every single bicyclist is a pedestrian, and many, many more pedestrians than cyclists. And that's just a fact, and I think we really need to make sure that we're addressing that. And another thing is I want to make sure that we're asking to hear from people, you know, really not just, oh, here, we're going to tell you how to do all this. We really want to hear from people and make sure that their input is valued and treasured and solicited in a really strong way.
So the walk and roll one, we don't have a lot of content for. So that would be that was kind of going to be my question, is what would go under walk and roll?
Nancy, did you have something?
As far as that goes, I think the snow would be one thing, and the safe routes to school. I think, right, the maps. Right. And
Would that go under plan your trip?
well, I mean, in some ways, I think maybe links to like where the parks are, and so I think plan your trip, you'd kind of already maybe know where you wanted to go, but in this case,
Plan your trip usually has you put in where you are and where you want to go, and it tells you how to get there. It's not usually
Right.
links to maps on most of the websites I've been on. Plan your trip is, it tells you how to get from point A to point B.
I think my preference would be to have fewer categories, and I mean, this getting around would be a pull down sub menu, and I'm also kind of wondering how it works with mobile apps. I mean, I think if you could get it down to where people have 4 or 5 pictures that they can click on, and and one of those will get them close to where they want to go. That would be my goal.
Right now, we're working with existing conditions, and the existing conditions are, what we can change is from the homepage, making parking just parking, and then adding another category.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, and then that category would be maybe called getting around. Maybe we could call it something else if other people have an idea. And then, so when we get to getting around, what do we want on the getting around?
But getting around would replace the bike urbana, right? So just go back one slide.
Mm-hmm.
This has, under parking and transportation, you'd have parking and bike urbanas there, but it would shift up into the getting around, and you would no longer have this whole bike urbana section. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so the 10 suggested headings under getting around need to cover zip car, pedestrians, and bike urbana?
Correct.
Okay.
So Zipcar is covered under bike and car share. Pedestrians is covered under walk and roll. And then bike urbana is covered under a variety of things. So bicycle-friendly community goes under maybe bike with us instead of ride with us. Bicycle maps goes under plan your trip. So instead of plan your trip, it would be here is a map, I guess. Bicycle master plan, that also goes under, yeah, so anyway, you can see how we shuffle, well, you probably can't see how we shuffled all the
Yeah.
information, but.
I can see it. I have a question that's maybe for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
To me, walk and roll is not bicyclist. This is just my head says walk and roll is
Walking and
walking
wheelchair,
and
maybe.
wheelchairing,
Yeah.
or, you know, on a wheelchair.
So
So
no, we
so
use
what is,
walk and
does
roll
it mean
all the time with
so
safe
it's
routes to
both?
school, and
It's kind of all of the above.
it's anything, any mobility on wheels.
So does getting around itself get a page?
Getting around will become this page. So you'll click on getting around, and then this will be your fall page. Instead of the fall page being bike urbana, the fall page will be getting around with some information on it.
Can we put images with links, embedded links or something in the content section, like you said it was Drupal, so we could have like a image that is a hot link to the walk and roll page?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at about, I don't know how many different websites, but that's what the majority of people do is they have big buttons with text on them. We don't want to use images because it's hard for people with visual impairment to read that. So it would just be a big button with text on it. But I don't think current conditions will allow for that layout.
I think
yeah.
I might be able to add to that. From what Sam has shown me and what we've been able to do in the past, we're not able, unfortunately, to do much graphic and pictures with hot links and actually put in a clickable item on there. We're just able to do text links from what we've been able to do. It was my impression that we're trying to get, though the website needs so much more, but just for current immediate needs, getting around would have all the same things that you would see in the drop-down. So that way you don't have, in case you're on a mobile device, you don't have a missing sidebar that has all the links to go to. Instead, it's just these are what they are. Unfortunately, that's probably going to be a text item and not a visual item at this point.
Yeah, then I'm in favor of keeping almost everything the way you have. The suggested 10, maybe on that first landing page, having a description of what you would find under each of the other pages. You don't have to go, I'm not talking about a table of contents, but just like where you would find clubs, and this is a map, and this is that sort of like half a sentence kind of thing.
Well, maybe what you would do is you would just write a really, really smart paragraph that included all of these magical words. That would have, do you like to walk and roll? Hot link. Or are you more of a mass transit hot link kind of person? Are you interested in biking with us? Do you like bike, we're not going to say plan your trip. Yeah, do you want help planning your trip? Or so you would just make a really smart paragraph, I think, that would just use this actual language and then all that stuff. And would you like to attend the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission in your spare time?
And so actually more likely it would be, bullet points, short bullet points and not a paragraph. But we really want to do, just go as far as they can do, because really time constraints are critical. So if we can just get it organized a little bit better so we can find things.
And we just start dishing, I think if we just start, because we don't want them to start moving anything around, and we don't want them to have broken links. We want them to be able to dish to them, here is walk and roll, and here's the information on the walk. We would love to ideally write the 10 pages or 15 or 100 or 2 or 3 or whatever. We would ideally like to write those pages, and then they would create whatever our buckets are, whatever our categories are, and then we could just give it to them. And then Ben could go in and just load them up, page after page. Because you don't want to have this on your website with nothing. Like, we have to actually give them the 10 pages and the content and everything all at once before they can make any kind of, changes or do anything.
And they were quite receptive to any input that we gave. I will say that they were actually very enthusiastic, and it looks like they're actually now revising the BPAC website. Just the commission site. So progress is being made in some fashion.
Yeah, it'd be great to at least get the links updated and get. There are some broken links, and some of them are pointing to old maps and things like that. We do also have quite a few educational videos that have been made over the years, so if it'd be like one place where you could put those.
And that education would be good, yeah. I'm hearing a lot about, so here's what I'm hearing on my end. I'm hearing a lot about outreach and education. So, I'm hearing a lot about, we want people to be able to know the rules of the road. We want people to, so it strikes me as if outreach and education should just be a little bit higher, maybe, instead of at the bottom. Yeah. Yeah, and also planning projects policies, I think that can stay down at the bottom. What would you think about bike with us versus ride with us?
Yeah, I think that would be better.
Okay. And then instead of plan your trip, I don't think bicycle maps, I'm not sure quite what we're going to be, I think we'll be putting the bike map on there, so it might actually just fit in, we might be able to just get rid of that category and put it under Ride With Us.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
The
Great.
only other one that we're sort of taking off the main list and putting somewhere integrated maybe is the safety tips, and I'm not sure that we want to take the word safety off that main list.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause at least at the U of I, safety is number one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure how it would get reincorporated, but I would suggest we consider that. What do you guys think?
So safety tips versus right now outreach and education. I would click probably on, what would you all click more on?
I think safety tips is a lot more inviting
Yeah,
than
me too.
outreach and education.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Safety and education?
Oh yeah, safety and education.
I actually kind of like safety tips.
Yeah,
It
I
feels like
think
you're
I
going
like
to learn
safety tips, too.
something.
It's a secret.
It's okay to keep what's right.
Don't look at all the millions of places we already
Don't
told
throw
you.
everything out. If there's something that you like that's working, keep it.
Because the one link that my husband really wanted was, it was something about like commute with us, or like it was very, he really liked that one. It was something about being very friendly about bike commute with us, and I just felt though, and I also feel like if we're trying to make this not just about biking, like we're making it about a transportation system,
Yeah.
I really kind of wanted to make sure the language felt very.
And even that see you sharing the road that's something that, I mean, people that don't ride bikes should find information here too about how to drive around bikes.
Right.
Or if they aren't looking here, we could at least direct them here with a link or something from someplace else. If there's, if there's a category like sharing the road where would have one of the bike safety two of the bike safety quizzes are actually for vehicle drivers.
Okay. And then bike parking would be a whole new thing that no one's ever seen before. Oh, there's a bicycle parking. That's interesting. That website, we imagine to actually have pictures of like, anyway, we don't need to get into the weeds. But yeah, that would be bike parking. Does anyone have strong opinions about this? Something about bike lanes, like how to park in bike lanes or park by bike lanes?
Yes, the university would love it if people would stop parking in bike lanes. So if there's something we can do throughout the whole community, trying to dissuade that, would be great.
I mean,
I don't even understand why parking and bike lanes are in the same sentence.
People park on bike lanes.
I know they do, but why do we want to encourage
we
it by
would say
putting them in
something
the same
like,
sentence?
no, not on bike lanes as the header. And then you could go there and have all this information about why it's such a
'Cause,
horrible idea.
I mean, I had an interaction with a Amazon Prime driver. I took a picture of his car, and he came out and started videotaping me and telling me what a terrible human I was. And I felt really bad for the guy. And I would have. That's actually what prompted this for me, is I was like, wow, there really is no place that I could have just sent him and just said,
That should be in the car parking section and
That's-
parking enforcement. That does not need to be on the bike page. People riding bikes already know you don't park your car on the bike lane.
So maybe it's a safety tip. Yeah, maybe it's a safety tip. So
You're
It
talking-
could be a
this-
safety tip, but it should be incorporated into
The parking.
the
is-
parking for cars.
This is on the parking. She's saying to add it on the parking. We would take out those three
I see.
and add it to parking.
I don't know. It could just be under
So that's what
enforcement.
this is,
I mean, I have no desire to reimagine these pages. I think the 10 that we're going to reimagine is enough. I don't need to. It was more just something to put out there. All right, just something we got to think about where that goes.
There was a prohibited and restricted parking, just under that category. Just make sure bike lanes is.
Good idea. Okay.
The problem is, I think in Urbana we have this covered, because I think Craig told us everywhere we have a bike lane, there is no parking allowed on that street where the bike lanes are done. However, there are places where there are bike lanes, and it does not have signs saying there is no parking. And so technically, I think it's,
There's parking on several, Anderson.
You think about, there's a bike lane
Illinois.
and parking
Yeah, Anderson
together.
has parking with bike lanes.
Illinois
but that's
Street.
shared. That's not a
There's
bike lane.
Illinois Street.
With,
Illinois.
Yeah.
right.
Main Street.
And what I'm talking about is where you have bike lanes that, I think what he said is where we have bike lanes, there is no parking on those streets. Anderson doesn't have bike lanes, it has shared bike. I mean, what it is really is it shows where the parking is, and bikes can go there when there's
In-
no cars parked there.
So where there's bike lanes with
Lanes.
no parking, you're not
Signs.
allowed to park there. So there's also,
Right.
you're saying that he said there's also a sign that says no
Yes,
parking?
yes.
But
And
it should say no stopping, standing, parking, or leaving your vehicle with flashers on while you run in for 5 to 50 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, this guy was so mad at me, and he like videotaped me, and he said, "You should not take a picture of my vehicle. This is my vehicle, and I can park anywhere I want to park this vehicle, and this is perfectly legal to park my vehicle here." And what's funny is it was in front of Hendrick House, which has has an area that he can
Has
just.
it, yeah.
Yeah, it was really confusing to me.
Some of
Anyway.
this, yeah, well, we can save that discussion for when we talk about enforcement.
Yeah.
But this,
So-
this looks like a good start, I think.
Maybe why don't we start here, build the pages, because these guys can't do anything anyway,
Well,
and then we can debate further. Sorry, go on.
So I'm confused on, this is on, okay.
Mhm.
Walk and roll, that's, as someone said, that's everything. That's walking, wheelchairs, bikes, whatever. Why is it, then, why, I don't understand why there's also mass transit ride with us plan your trip. Like, that should be nested in walk and roll, because you're doing all those things, walking and rolling.
well, walking and rolling is a human-powered walking and rolling. Mass transit is driving a motorized vehicle. Walking and rolling is about people-powered
Right,
transportation.
but all you have, like, I'm interested in making things simple, because like, if I have this, I want 4 options, not 15. So if you have a walk and roll as an overarching, this is
Yeah,
all
see,
modes
I
of
would never look
transportation.
under walk and roll for transit. I would look for transit as a separate category.
Because for me, rolling is the bus.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's already several bike links in there, so I don't understand really what's gonna go under walk and roll.
To me, that's safe routes to
I
school.
think they just need to be
Yeah.
a little bit more, need to be able to predict what you're gonna see when you click on it.
Maybe it should be called Safe Routes to School then. If that's what walk and roll, if that's what you're saying would go there, then that should be named that way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more that we can do with pedestrians that can go there.
I will say that we are trying to, when we take this back, as staff, we want to do everything we're advised to, but we are trying to really get away from just pedestrians and those words and bikers, and we're trying really hard to put people who are riding bikes, people who are walking. So one thing is maybe walk and roll is great, but then we have all these bike-related ones underneath that, and if those things maybe could be maybe pared down to an even shorter list if possible.
Cool.
Did we get recognized as like a don't we? So can we still say that we're a walkable city?
We can say whatever we want.
So can we have one that says walkable city, bike-friendly community, transit? Oh. But we're still walkable. We're still walkable. Walkable city, bike-friendly community. Right, and that those are the keys, and that, mass transit, Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District has its own line.
Maybe all we need is just this go where you want, and then just hot links to stuff. I mean, who knows? So, okay, so Nancy, Sue, and me, we will get back together and we'll figure out a shorter list of options. The few things I'm hearing, shorter list of options. A little bit confused about walk and roll. Ride with us, not sure about that. Plan your trip, not sure about that. And safety tips. So we will take all of your delightful feedback and we will figure something out. And I think for us, I guess the first question, because I think once we actually get into the meat of the issue and start breaking down the information and sorting it and figuring out where it all goes, then that'll actually also really help us. I think we just really wanted to make sure we weren't missing any buckets of information, and also Lily, is this humanly possible, this concept?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, thanks
Thank
a lot.
you. Appreciate all your feedback.
Yeah, it's quite a chore.
Progress.
Okay, and we do have a new business presentation. Shannon's going to go through the University Avenue plan. Just as a reminder, this has already gone out to bid, and I think they've accepted the bid. It's going to be a 2-year construction project starting in the spring.
Shannon, will you say your last name for us so that we say it correctly?
Baranik.
Baranik?
Baranik.
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 Thank you.
Probably mispronounced Baranak, but I'll answer to anything because everyone says it wrong.
And Shannon is our
I hear
transportation engineer now.
I've just been asking for Shannon.
I'm the only Shannon who works for the city, so it's pretty easy to find me. All right. So I put together, with the help of Chase, who's my tech, some slides with the plans. Go through a little overview first. I used all of your Urbana slides. You'll see all the colors because I like to use them. The project goes from Wright Street to Maple through Urbana. Most of universities included, obviously not past Maple. IDOT was the designers. I had no input. No city engineer worked on this. So, there's going to be questions I can't answer because I wasn't privy to them. The project has been awarded to Champaign Asphalt Company. Oh, both of them. All right.
Stereo.
All right. The bid amount was just over $10 million. There was, initially the bid was rejected because it was too high, but I believe, and I'm not quite certain, but Tammy Duckworth actually threw in some federal dollars to help close the gap. So don't quote me on that, but that was what I was told. So that's why it was awarded, even though it was past the IDOT bid threshold. Our expected start is next spring. So they've already got the survey lath out there. I've seen it all up and down University. They are getting ready. So it is coming. It's going to last 2 construction seasons, yep, all the way through fall of 2021. It's going to do new ADA ramps, all intersections, new PED push buttons that are the kind you can just punch. You don't have to, aim for a tiny little button. The crosswalks are going to have stripes as opposed to the standard just one line down each side, so they're more visible. There'll be more of that later. Another big thing is they're going to change the traffic signals. You're going to go from the standard 3-phase red, green, yellow to red, yellow, flashing yellow, green. And FHWA has found those are safer because you get more time. There's more time to clear the intersection. Drivers are more aware of the phases are changing because they have the extra phase. And then also, this is an IDOT route, but say we had these in the city, our electricians could actually program them better. They have a better programming system, so that actually does aid to the safety. I can't say if IDOT will do that, but that is part of why they chose these. So here's a little diagram of how they work. Green means the same it always has. You get the arrow, you get to go. Obviously watch for pedestrians, but it means the same thing. Once it starts flashing yellow, that gives the drivers a warning saying, hey, the phases are changing, let's start thinking about clearing the intersection, but they still have no oncoming traffic to worry about.
So the flashing yellow arrow, is that replacing the solid green ball on the left turn signal head?
I believe that they actually will be a bigger signal head. They'll have all of the bulbs. I'm not quite sure because I couldn't find a good enough diagram.
Because right now you can turn left yield on green without the arrow, but it's a solid
I believe
green.
the solid green will still be there for that because left turn is allowed on green unless otherwise stated, and I haven't seen anything where IDOT's stating there will be no turn.
Okay.
So,
Shannon, I'm so sorry, but I think you just said with a flashing yellow arrow, the oncoming traffic will not be going.
oh, I'm sorry, they did. I've been
Could you
trying
just
to.
maybe say the yellows again from the beginning so we don't,
So it
'cause
goes,
that's a big difference, right? With flashing yellow,
Oh, that-
oncoming traffic is coming. It's not, it doesn't, it goes from green, solid green to, I don't know when the flashing yellow would go, but if it were,
see, I got these from MnDOT because they're the only ones that could find the diagrams. So theirs may be different from IDOT's. I'll have to double check on that. So don't go.
so my understanding is just that the flashing yellow arrow means that you can turn, you're allowed to turn if there's a gap.
Yeah.
And it does not mean like a yellow light at 3 balls. And so that's very scary.
Yeah, that's what it says here. Basically, it says after yielding to all oncoming traffic for flashing yellow. So it's proceed at your own risk. Basically, it's not red. It's not saying don't turn. And it's not saying it's protected green.
Well, it looks very worrisome because since when do you have a yellow light and oncoming traffic has a green?
And they're very expensive to install, and
Because they are new wiring, they will require all new cabinets because of the extra phase.
And
Yeah.
these are in Wisconsin, and I've been near in multiple accidents because of them. And they're really dangerous, and it's really, really upsetting to me that these are going in. They're very, very dangerous, and I don't know how I don't know what metrics they have, because it's also another thing for drivers to look for instead of pedestrians crossing in the crosswalk, because as we all know, pedestrians will have the legal right to cross. But now drivers have another thing that they're looking at, and that's really what's distracting for me when I drive into this town of 40,000 in Wisconsin, and these flashing lights are happening, and it's very confusing and very frustrating. And I was with my dad, who, I mean, I've made mistakes, my 80-year-old father has made mistakes, and these things are awful. That's
All I can say is IDOT cites FHWA, so I mean,
Well, I just
Yeah.
had an FHWA webinar that stated that the lengthening the yellow interval is a huge safety improvement, but not having a flashing yellow arrow, that
Yeah,
was definitely
these
not.
are new to me as well. I have
I
never
hope that this is a
encountered, I've never
mistake.
encountered them. I'm just saying IDOT, they cite FHWA for safety. So I mean, I have to go with what they say and tell me. so-
But you got this picture from, I'm
This was from
saying I hope
MnDOT,
that
yeah.
MnDOT
Yeah, this
has
I had
an
to
error
get,
here.
I had to get this from MnDOT because it's the only good picture I could find. Like the
Yeah.
rest of them were terrible.
Well, I'm
looks-
hoping
yeah.
that MnDOT
So
has
that's
it
my-
wrong there,
that's
because
my
that's pretty
question.
crazy.
What did IDOT say for the flashing yellow turn?
They cited FHWA safety.
But did they?
They had
do we-
no real information. I was trying to research this on my own.
Yeah, no, not the
Yeah.
not the safety
But I mean, like,
metrics.
even why
but,
they used
but
it.
do they? Because this is
Yeah.
my question. Sorry, you said that you described the flashing yellow turn arrow,
Right. That's how it was described to me.
and the way it was described to you was what? Say that.
That it went, it's kind of like the current 3-phase, but it adds the extra flashing phase to give you more time and more of a, hey, things are changing, let's go. That's how it was described to me. However, it's proving that apparently that is not how they work. So I would love to be able to give you a concrete answer.
So we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a person who has used these, that's exactly how they work. It is you're approaching the intersection, it is green, it turns to flashing yellow, flashing yellow, flashing yellow, flashing yellow, flashing yellow, and you're like, what in gosh's name is going on here? Red.
And where's the solid? Where is the solid yellow?
Yeah, that sounds like solid yellow. Sounds like if you have flashing yellow, you wouldn't have red.
It turns to red. It goes from flashing yellow, flashing yellow, flashing yellow, red.
See, these
That's
would go solid.
Well, I don't think
yeah.
we know yet exactly how they're going to program it, because.
Well, they do have the 4-phase in their diagrams. They do have that
They
4th
have
phase
that.
in there. So they, I
In
would assume they
terms of
turn
the
it on.
timing, we don't
Yeah.
know how
Ac-
they're gonna
Well,
time it exactly.
I do have in the appendix here, they do have signal timing for
And
the
you- and they have the signal timing, it shows what's gonna happen when.
it's more for how long it takes for like the phases to go. It's not it's not broken down per each
Right,
individual phase.
right.
It's the overall
Yeah,
side. So
Yeah, so I think until we have that, we don't really know how they're gonna set it up.
until they turn them
program it.
on and everyone gets to try them, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that this is something that I would suggest that we ask for clarity on how they're expected to get signed, how they're expected to get programmed.
Right.
And if they're not going to be programming these for 2 years, I think there is an opportunity for a change that we shouldn't just wait and see. Let's
Yeah.
find
It-
out.
Yeah.
Because it's scary.
Okay, thanks. Let's keep moving.
I agree. All right, and this is just some of the construction information I was able to find from IDOT. There will be nighttime work. We're going to do a lot of the milling and surfacing at night to help alleviate traffic issues. For vehicles, the traffic control is going to include, there will always be lanes open in both directions. There will never be a detour, a shutdown completely of any direction. There will be side street closures, which could impact somewhere we're going to turn, say you want to turn down Maple, whatever. But University itself will always remain open. And then for the pedestrians, I literally just copied what they told me because they love to quote their highway standards, and if you're not familiar with them, a lot of times they don't make sense. But basically what this boils down to is there is always going to be a pedestrian access route open through all the phases of construction. It was a requirement, and that's what they're going to do, so that way there will never be a point where a pedestrian, a bicyclist gets to a sign and is like, I have nowhere to go. There will always be somewhere for them to go. So, which is very helpful, especially in this town. So let's start with our wonderful pictures. Chase helped get these. He made a lovely legend, which I then put in PowerPoint. Blue is always going to be 5 foot. This legend is on every slide. That way you don't have to memorize what it is. The ones I know people really want to look out for are the yellow and the orange, because those are where we're increasing sidewalk size to be closer to a multi-use path with an 8-foot width. That way it allows more pedestrians, especially any wheelchair users, bicyclists. It gives you more space to pass, turnabout space. There are some restrictions with the way buildings are that we can't do those. So this is literally gonna go from all the way from Wright Street through Maple. I got
So,
yeah.
when I looked at these, they had not eliminated the slip lane on the diagrams that I looked at online.
No, the slip lane is for, and I know the Wooded Race still there. So,
But at Wright, we have them too, and I don't see it here.
Right?
there's still the right turn lane. It's still there. It's just not as pronounced.
Okay, all right, I got you.
I get gas at that gas station all the time, so I drive through it all quite frequently.
It's smaller there.
Yeah, the one at Race is way pronounced, and it is still there. I did actually make
I
note of
probably
that. Yeah.
thinking of Lincoln and Ray's.
All right, so a lot of what's in front of Beckman already has a nice wide path. People walk on it all the time, so IDOT is not going to change anything on that side for this part of University. On the north side, Romine's getting the new crosswalk, putting in new wider paths. The little pinks are transitions from different widths, so there'll be little pinks splattered throughout.
That's not a raised median there, that's just paint?
That's just paint, yeah.
All right.
And how wide is the parkway?
In the
On the
striped
north?
area?
No, the area between the edge of curb to
It
the road.
varies just because of how they could get right away and get in between trees and buildings and parking garages. There is no standardly consistent parkway size. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
I mean, you can see how Beckman's Pass gets real close to the road too in this part.
And were they making any changes to the street lights?
There will be new lights, but they will not be different. Like Urbana's requirement was they be the nice black ones that match the rest of Urbana's lights. So we actually had to buy those in advance and like promise like we will pay X amount of dollars to get these particular lights. But as far as actual lighting changes, I think they're just replacing what's there. So, and possibly adding a couple new ones, but it's, I was not privy to those conversations, but I know they were contentious. So, especially because the black lights are expensive.
Yeah, I think the black powder coat on the, instead of the brushed aluminum silver, costs like $100,000
Yeah.
extra for the project.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they did it. Oh, yeah, we're getting the black lights.
The city did it.
Yeah. But we had to pay it. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had to pay for that.
IDOT required the city to pay for it. Yeah.
Finally, I got it. All right.
Oh, went the wrong way. There we go. Matthews also getting new crosswalks painted just across itself, not across University. But it is getting a whole new 8-foot pathway along the north side. So that's nice. And then on the south side, got the parking garage there. It already has a fairly decent sidewalk, so they're not going to change anything on that side. Keep going the wrong way. There we go. So University and Goodwin, whole thing is getting new continental stripes, new 8-foot pathways. You can see the northwest corner. They're going to put in a nice new ADA ramp. And this part's pretty boring because both sides get 8-foot pathways, new crosswalks. I mean, it's nice. I'm just saying, like, there's nothing fancy about this slide. On this one, there's space constraints on the other side, so they could only increase it to 6, but you still get the 8-foot wide on the south side and the new crosswalk on Gregory. And then, so we're now approaching the railroad tracks. And I know there has been concerns over the railroad tracks and doing things near the tracks. However, railroad companies don't like you to even look at their property, so IDOT really did what they could without having to deal with any railroad.
So I have a question. I'm surprised that they didn't get any of these driveways closed with this project, because don't they have a program for access control? And some of that property is even vacant. So it seemed like it's the perfect time to close those driveways.
That's their decision. I would agree. And I know, especially the Geneva Zero is going to be a new Green Street Realty, so I think they may close some in the process on that stretch there.
I wonder if the city has the ability to have that conversation with them. But usually whoever owns the road says, you know, we're redoing this roadway and we want to close these drives.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that they didn't do that. I don't know whether there's still any opportunity for that, but.
I wish I could tell you. And I know, like, Lincoln and Springfield, which is a project I worked on, which I'm not going to go into discussion on that one. We are closing drives on that one, so we do it as a city. However, IDOT may not as an entity because it is an expensive project, and they already went over budget, so.
Well, it's more of a safety issue. It's
Oh,
a
no,
really
I know.
huge safety, and since this was a safety project, and some of that property, if I'm looking at it properly, is
Yeah, I think
closed.
that's that
So-
triangle, isn't it?
Vacant.
I have worked with some of those vacant properties on the north end, and some of the property owners. Many of them have shared parking situations, which makes it very hard for people to get in and out while also being in compliance
This
with
is
their
the
zoning.
abandoned gas station.
The abandoned gas station, also empty and for sale, are a couple of properties next door. And the abandoned gas station has a lot of issues, and its property owner is going through it, and the last thing that's on his mind right now is Access Drive.
Oh, I understand that, but it should have been on IDOT's mind,
Yeah.
because they could have closed at least one of those drives and it wouldn't have impacted their access at all.
And the properties next door have shared parking access issues, so. just-
Those are probably property lines there. Okay.
So now we get to everyone's favorite university in Lincoln. There was, because of the railroad and there is limited space because you have Carl properties, they really can't do much in terms of making the sidewalk any wider. They're getting 5 foot. That's about all you can get in a lot of places. Fortunately, after that, we can get back into wider ones. Just right here, there just is not space.
I think also all these signals are supposed to have video bicycle detection.
Yes.
Is that for, I've always thought of it as the north-south being able to cross University, but apparently some people do ride their bikes on University.
They do. I've seen them.
So, well, it works in all 4 directions?
I'm not sure if they're going to program it. It's an option you can have on or not. So whether or not they turn it on, I don't know.
Okay. But they'll have enough video cameras pointing in all directions, probably.
Will this, once it's completed, will it stay, the programming, will that be on IDOT or on the city
They're IDOT controlled.
for all of them?
Yeah. Any light on University is, if something happens with like an emergency, our guys can go out and trip them the flashing red, turn them off, do what they need to. But if it comes to programming them, that's all IDOT's guys.
Yes, I know this because used to, if you were going northbound on Goodwin, the signal would not turn, even when you push the button repeatedly. And I called the city and they said that's IDOT's, and so it took a while, but we finally got that fixed.
Shannon, they're taking down the 13 trees that were planted in 1976, right, to do this?
I wasn't I'm interested in trees because I work for Urbana, but when I was putting this together, trees were not on my mind. I know for the MCOR project, we are replacing more trees than we're taking down. IDOT doesn't follow a policy like that, so I would hazard a guess that any tree gets taken down is not getting replaced, and sadly, we'll probably lose some nice old growth trees. So, part of my day has been dealing with getting easements for MCOR and promising people that, yes, we have to take this tree, but we will give you a new one. So I totally understand the tree aspect. And some people actually said, don't go around the tree, take it out. And we're like, well, no, it's Urbana. We have to save this tree. So I never thought I'd have to deal with that as a transportation engineer. You learn something new all the time.
In Chicago, they're absolutely saving trees. I mean, trees are worth thousands of dollars, and they do tons of great work for your city. So it's very disappointing to me that IDOT doesn't know how to work with them.
Well, yeah, again, it did come up at the city council, and there were strong feelings expressed about this, and especially that many other cities have demonstrated you can have a tree on a very small bit of property just fine, or at least fine enough for the
And I
city
know
to support
IDOT's
it.
always told the line of, and it's not just IDOT, a lot of transportation entities feel any tree on a major way is going to, for some reason, cause massive car crashes, and they will crash into them like bugs in a bug zapper.
That's
which
old school.
It is.
And it was all about
yeah.
saving the car.
Yeah.
I
And-
was dumbfounded by this when I went to work for a city back in the 80s, and they said, you know, well, a car might crash into it. And I said, well, wouldn't we prefer they hit the tree rather than the people or the buildings?
Right.
And I could not rationalize that. It was a
I mean, they're
very
living
weird
bollards. They
mindset.
keep cars out of hot walk. And yeah. Yeah. I can, yeah. I don't either. So, keeping going down University, we're getting further past Carl. We got to Busey, again getting more sidewalk or crosswalks, and again with the Carl properties all over the place in this area, expanding the sidewalk is just difficult. Yeah. So, but Kohler also gets nice new zebra stripes, which I've always found, just my personal anecdote, people notice those way better. They see the stripes. This is a crosswalk as opposed to two faded lines that get hidden in the snow and yeah. So here's the actual.
I'm sorry, can you go back to the Kohler one?
Oh, sure.
I think that I have a question about the accessibility ramps there, accessible ramps.
Yes.
So one of the things on campus when we have an intersection that has stop signs, we're more comfortable with one of those ramps that kind of like open, it's sort of
The
an
angled
arch.
curved ones? Yeah.
What's it called? Angle, just what you say?
They
angled
have like
curve?
15 different names according to ProAg depending on how they work. And,
So-
but I know which one you're talking about.
This
The
is
ones
a
with the
traffic-
curve. Yeah.
this is a traffic signal, right?
Yes.
So if we have a visually impaired person at that southeast corner, if that's the right, yeah. How will they won't be able to, will they be able to detect?
It depends on how
which
they
direction
install
they're
the
going?
detectable warnings. Some of them have the warning in itself as an arch, so they arch this way. Some actually angle them like you would in a regular one and have a middle part that is not the same
Okay.
texture. I think IDOT does not use those. But the problem, when you use a lot of these angled ones, besides the way you have them on campus, they're also put in due to restrictions. Like there's probably something there they had to design around, so they couldn't make it like all other corners. That's usually when you use those. They're kind of contraindicated unless you have to use them.
Well, it just seems like at the hospital location would be a place to be more
You would
rigorous.
think.
It should always be, but,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I wish I had more like existing in the drawings that I have so I could see exactly what they were trying to design around, because those are usually only used when you have to, like I know in Lincoln Springfield, there's a couple retaining walls we have to use them around because we can't rip out the retaining walls on private property. So it's, even ProAg says they're not ideal, but it's better than not having anything fixed. So here's the Orchard Carl entrance, which is also getting new stripes, and it has none of those angled crossing you can see in the west side there. That is, I believe, their sign. I believe there's something actually right there on the property that would facilitate designing around it. So this area is not super interesting. They're not doing too much, but you are getting a new 8-foot path on the south side, so that will help continue the 8-foot path Carl already had along their new breast cancer center, which I do see people walking on that part quite frequently. So again, this part's not super exciting. Getting some new crosswalks, new 8-foot paths, but we're also getting into land of, there's a lot more entrances, and all of these are fairly active. I mean, I know like Miko's is closed, but they're always trying to sell it, so maybe a restaurant in the future, so closing their driveway would not be something that, yeah. So we're progressing down the street. get more 8-foot sidewalks, more crosswalks, drawing attention. I have multiple slides on this one because the design did improve on this one, even though it still has the slip lane, I believe. Yeah, because here you can see here, that's the slip lane on the bottom corner.
That's Broadway, yeah.
I know people, as a car driver, they're great because you can just zip right through the intersection, but if there's a pedestrian there, they're hosed because that car is coming zipping around the corner. However, it's not going anywhere. So I didn't have time to overlay these. I wanted to actually make a nice little overlay, but,
Well, this is Race, the other picture you
oh,
showed is Broadway.
I'm sorry. There we go. There's my two.
Broadway, yeah.
So I can flip them back and forth easily. Yeah. So
Yeah, it is low.
Increase,
they are actually changing the islands, at least for the
they're
slip
making
lanes.
the islands bigger.
Yeah, and they have a pedestrian refuge on them as opposed to the current system.
Yeah. There's one that went across the north side of Broadway, it used to go straight across, now it looks like it goes to the island first.
Yeah, so like I'll flip back, see they, and what this, besides giving pedestrian refuges, it also creates shorter paths, so that way people can get across the street faster and not be in mortal peril if a car is coming flying through. And
So
they,
are there, are the buttons to push on the islands, or you still have to push the button when you're on the sidewalk?
I believe the buttons are also on the island, because that would be part of ADA accessibilities. That way you're not like more than 3 feet away from the button where you
Yeah.
can't reach it, even if you are able-bodied. Because I've seen some pretty bad ones where you need a stick to push it, how
Mhm.
far away they are. Yeah. Get through IDOT's ProWag class,
Oh,
you'll see
can
some
you go
interesting
back
things.
to
Wait,
Broadway
so-
again?
so
Also
the-
on that, the other thing I noticed is the bike lanes go clear across now. Currently, they
Yes.
don't go clear across.
Yeah, I tried to, I put that right there in the middle of the angle, or point at them. I actually was surprised at that myself when I was going through this. I was like, oh, look, they put in bike lanes. We don't have bike lanes to match. I'm part of that on the north side. But it will help with getting bikes across University. It will give them somewhere to park, at least at the light, and then they can, take the lane when they get to the other side.
So did you say there'll be buttons both on the sidewalk and on the island?
I believe so. I'm not entirely certain. The plans I have are 11 by 17, and even when I try to blow them up on, yeah, they're
Okay.
not great. I wish I had had like an actual CAD file, but IDOT does not share those. Yeah. I do have Craig's magnifying glass that I stole from his office, so I can always try to bust that out later and give you an answer. So this is not super exciting, 8-foot paths, so we are getting something, but it's not, thrilling. University in Cunningham, I did the same thing where I have 2 pictures. This is the current layout. The paths are terrible. They're super long. There's 3 islands instead of 4. I don't know who designed this years ago, but yeah. So we still only
New and improved intersection.
well, they're new and improving it again because now we get the same treatment as at Broadway, where you have pedestrian refuges on the islands. The paths are shorter, except for that weird one up here. They did make it tight, a little shorter going up to the north, but it's not, wrong way. But it's still better than what's current, but it's not the most ideal design. So, but, I mean, ultimately, if you do have a shorter path, that is a safety improvement. Yeah.
So there's no sidewalk on the south side?
No,
after-
the Boneyard Creek, and there's trees, there's a ditch, there's a guardrail, there is nothing over there.
And then Domino's or something.
Yeah, it ends right there, like if you can see an existing.
Oh, I know it
yeah.
currently ends. I was
Yeah.
hoping they were going to fix it.
No, there's no room between the guardrail, the ditch, and the road, unless they narrow the road, which is never gonna happen.
Never say never.
Yeah.
We're
Never
going
right
to
now.
keep
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah. In these 2 construction seasons, it won't
I
happen.
think isn't that part of the Boneyard Phase 4 or 5 or something though, where
Yeah, that's the drainage side of upstairs, it all
so it
works,
may
so.
eventually, if the Boneyard part goes underneath Cunningham, like it does on Race Street, eventually I suppose there could be a multi-use path come up from there.
And I know that farther down, the MTD put in their sidewalk to nowhere, as I call it, because I work for the company that designed it, and eventually we can connect to it, but for right now, it doesn't really go
Well, it
anywhere.
gets used a lot by employees.
Right, but I mean, for
Yeah.
like people who say want to walk down to the park or even for some ride the Kickapoo Rail Trail, it's not connected. So hopefully
Right.
they can
right.
connect to it at some point.
And there's a significant gap of other private properties
Yeah.
up to the corner of Cunningham. So even in spots where you could have a sidewalk, there's not one.
No. You think the Domino's would want a sidewalk so people would walk to get pizza. They just built it. So, and then Maple, what they're doing is, it's very hard to see. The current sidewalk kind of goes up and around and makes it so you have to cross the drive at a weird angle. This makes it straighter so the cars have better visibility seeing the pedestrians.
Did they look at how many pedestrians cross there? There are a lot of pedestrians crossing there. I wonder
North
if they
to
counted
south
them.
or
Yes.
At Maple, yeah.
People don't want to cross at Cunningham, and there are people who live up there, and they all go here to cross. And this has actually become a reasonably high-class location.
If I'm
So-
going to a sanitary district, I ride my bike across there and then get on the
Well,
sidewalk on the
yeah,
other side.
I to go to MTD, I will go eastbound, but if I'm coming back with my electric bike, I can't climb over the railroad tracks with it. It's
Oh,
too
those are
heavy.
terrible tracks, yeah.
And so what I will do if there's a lot of traffic and I just can't get in it is I'll take that neighborhood and then come out down here and then go across rather than try and make a left, because I was nearly hit by a woman when I was in the waiting to make a left turn onto
Well, and I know
Maple.
Maple itself also for cars it uses a major cut through for people trying to avoid Vine, because when I worked at BCA, that's how we got to work when Vine was under construction, and it was not designed for that level of cars and people, and it. I can't say for what IDOT chose with this, but I mean, making the one side safer, but not adding in some kind of way to cross University may be something to do with traffic. I did actually.
Well, I don't think they looked at it.
No.
I suspect, and they would say they wouldn't want them to cross there, but that doesn't matter. People are crossing there anyway.
It also may be because west of Vine, ADT is 21,000. East of Vine, it drops to 13,000 significantly. So they're like, oh, it's not that bad. You know, there's gaps big enough to cross. So, I mean, again, I'm only speculating. So, and then I just thought this was funny because it's IDOT. I can't actually change anything. So, I have this little guy on my computer desktop screen. He rotates through various things. So.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, announcements. I will mention that our snow removal suggestions went to City Council, and they accepted part of them, so they're going to include the north part of North Campus and North Downtown that basically extended those districts up to University and just across University. But they didn't like the idea of including University Avenue and Green Street to connect downtown to campus. There were two people that showed up that were concerned that it wasn't fair that they would have to shovel their sidewalks and nobody else in town would have to. And apparently that carried a lot of weight with some council members. So they put that off and they said to bring it back to the committee of the whole. So they wanted the city staff to look at cost estimates, what it would cost for the city to shovel sidewalks, either just for those parts or citywide. And, you know, so there's more discussion on it. I think I was a little disappointed because we did discuss it quite a bit, and I think, you know, there's arguments to be made for the city to do things, but if everybody can, you know, if we require it, I think it gets done faster, because most people don't want to wait until it gets packed down. People walk on it, so they get out and they shovel pretty quick. If you're going to have the city do it, they're probably going to do it 2 or 3 days later. And it's good. The university has 125 people on their snow removal crew to do fewer streets and fewer sidewalks than Urbana has. So if you're talking about citywide, it would involve probably, you know, many times more people than we have working in our public works department. Anyway, so there's that. So that may come back to city council in some form and for more discussion.
And Bill, the CTA, at that meeting, aside from two individuals who own property on, it's my understanding, Green Street. Yeah, but the CTA asked for snow removal, and it was MTD. I'll never get that right. MTD.
We didn't even know who you were talking
I know,
about.
I know. I get yelled at. You have no idea. I always say it. MTD, Mass Transit District. The Mass Transit District came forward, and then also the city was BPAC. BPAC thought it was a really good idea, and it's my understanding, Cynthia, you were there, and you gave a presentation. Safe Routes to School thought it was a really good idea. So there were a lot of advocates who thought it was a really good idea. One partner I think that was not included that we might wish to include would be facilities and services at the University of Illinois. Maybe they could give a presentation to City Council about the importance of removing snow and on sidewalks and why it is best practices to remove snow on sidewalks and maybe something like that. I have no idea if that would assist or help in any way, but it just seems like there's an education component missing on this that is so outrageous to me.
Yeah, I think I picked up on the same thing. You know, we talk a lot about safety, and we understand that if you don't have clear sidewalks on certain streets, people go walk in the streets, and on some streets that may pass, you know, on neighborhood streets, you can get away with that. But on streets where there's transit, like and heavier traffic, like Green Street, it's a lot more dangerous. And that wasn't coming across to council members and to some of the other people. So I think part of it is a matter of just not not thinking about it the way we do every month or every week or every day, some of us. So I think that was kind of a surprise to me, but I think, you know, people are starting to figure it out. It's just I wasn't quite prepared for that.
There's a lot of room for improvement as far as how the university interacts with the communities in these kinds of situations. I mean, you know, FNS is executing it and it has some lessons learned from what it takes, but I would suspect that there's some faculty who also would have, you know, I don't know on this particular topic, but, you know, peer-reviewed journals related to this that could also be available if you.
Oh, we have piles of data. That is not a problem.
Yes, but sometimes it's the voice that it gets, you know, new voices like.
Well, there was also discussions of fines.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that we need to be cognizant of. People are afraid that people are going to get fined and they can't afford to pay the fines. So, but what's sad to me about that is just make the fine $1. You know, like if that's really because I suspect that was, to me, that didn't strike me as that struck me as something else altogether. Yeah,
the object isn't to find people, it's to get the sidewalks clear, and I think the way it's been implemented, they do get plenty of warning, and I think, I don't remember, Carol gave a listing of how many fines were actually handed out every year. There were maybe a dozen or so one year, but most times less than that, I think. And the number of snow events they mentioned, I think, ranged from two in 1 year and 5 maybe, average of 2, something like that. So it's not a lot. And, you know, we just got through one where it took me 5 minutes to push the snow shovel across my sidewalk. But people think about shoveling, they think, oh, it's going to take me an hour. That's because they're thinking about their driveway, not the sidewalk. Anyway, so there's still more discussion on that. Any other announcements? Oh, LRTP, tomorrow is the last day to submit comments on the long-range transportation plan, if you haven't done that already. They came to City Council yesterday and gave a presentation.
So they gave you 1 day to make comments?
Yeah. Any other
announcements? This is something that's been brought up in previous LRTP plans, is that we'd really like to see more than 1 day.
We had 30
notice.
There was 30 days.
There were 30 days. I mean, most of us knew about it, but
presentation was 1 day.
They waited a while to present to council. But
yeah, we'd like the presentation a lot earlier so people could think about it and actually get a response in.
Any other announcements? Okay, future topics. Oh, Vision Zero will probably be going to, our resolution will probably go to City Council on December 2nd or 16th.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
9th?
The 9th is committee.
Well, I
We
think
don't
it
have
should
to,
be committee.
sometimes there's more time at council because committee, if there's a lot of issues, and the meeting will be long.
Yes, I know, but I think one of the problems for the snow removal was that negative comments were made at committee, and so they had already formed the conversation for council meeting.
This one we aren't asking for immediate action though. So there's no action except other than to direct us to direct staff to come up with a Vision Zero resolution.
Okay.
Because we're presenting our communication that we want them to implement a Vision Zero resolution, but they don't have that yet to vote on.
Confirm the date for us so we can have some people.
Okay. But that isn't necessarily a future topic anymore. I think we could, well, no, we still have our subcommittee, so let's leave that on there.
Well, we have a quick update.
Oh, okay.
The subcommittee has met, and we spoke with, do you want to talk about it, Cynthia?
Well, we
'Cause
had
you know
we had an online audio meeting with staff from Miracle Walks, and talked to them about how best to proceed, next steps, and one of the things they offered was that they could come here and do a one-day workshop on this, and that they are working on some programming to facilitate communities not only adopting a policy, but it's like the Complete Streets policy. If you adopt policy, implementation doesn't necessarily follow. And so they're going to send us a proposal, and we talked about how you best do this kind of programming. And we told them that we were really emphasizing talking about education in the community and public awareness raising as a first step for our community moving forward, and looking at how to develop the implementation plan from there. So yeah, I think it was a really good meeting. And if you want to add anything else, Audrey, please feel free.
Well, the Vision Zero, I'm not sure if she's the executive director.
She's one of the Vision Zero organizations nationally. Yeah, she's the director.
She just came off a workshop in Cleveland, Ohio, that's basically at the same place as us. I believe they just passed a resolution that looks very similar to ours.
I think this is enough where it'd be good to keep it as, just put it on the agenda for next month.
Sure.
We could give an update. Yeah, we
Yeah.
could give an update next month.
Yeah, let's do that. So that'll be one on the agenda for next month. And I hope to get enforcement. I've talked to the police chief. I think we'll find somebody to.
Bill, when can we get our bicycle wayfinding, our pedestrian master plan? This was supposed to be at max a 2-year process. We've gone way past that.
Yeah, right now they're
Well-
finishing up the LRTP, so.
I do know the wayfinding plan is sitting on my desk. I've done my review. I have to get my comments to RPC. I believe planning also has comments that they have to get to RPC, and then RPC has to do those comments, so it's not soon. Because I talked to Gabe at RPC, and they are also busy, in addition to the fact that I'm the only current transportation engineer. It has been on my desk for a while, and I do get to it when I can, but the city is suffering from manpower at the moment, so.
Yeah, but I understand that some of it's been sitting and planning for a while, so I would like to encourage staff to finish up their review and comments so that we can get that moved forward.
And is there, it's a draft format now, you just don't want us to be looking at it in draft form yet?
No,
or
it is not.
It's
I
not?
would like to be delicate. I do not want the public to see it at any point right now.
Okay,
So Lily can agree with me on that one.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it looks like at least 2 topics for next month, Vision Zero and enforcement.
And the website folks will probably try to
and the
do
website,
something.
That'll probably be coming every month for a few months, maybe.
We might also have students from a class on campus. They did observational
yeah.
studies on Lincoln. They recorded data on pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers, and they probably will be able, if they're still in town for our meeting in December, to come and make that presentation. If not, it may be the January meeting. But I'm very anxious to see the results that they found and give us that data, because we don't really have good data on crossing behaviors, driver behavior, bicyclist behavior.
I think if you have to wait for them to come back, it would have to be the February meeting. It's from when school starts.
We'll see what they say.
Okay, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.